Okay, Josh, what do you think? Is that pretty good? We'll get it up. Then we have Tim Chavez. He's our next speaker. He's battalion chief with CAL FIRE Riverside Unit, but also with the Beaumont Battalion and Banning City Fire Services. Tim? And we have Shane Reichert, who will be speaking next. And Shane is Emergency Services Coordinator with the County of Riverside Emergency Management Department, Emergency Services Division. Shane was out here last February when our Emergency Preparedness Committee held a tabletop disaster drill. And we took to heart some of the input. Stand up, Shane. Let's all see. Now, any event this size, and this is about one of the biggest town halls I think I've seen since in the 8 years I've been here, but any event this size obviously takes a team to put it together. And I'd like to introduce my fellow members of the Four Seasons Emergency Preparedness Committee. Anita Worthen, there she is right here. John McLaughlin. John's also one of our co-chairs. Linda Gaylor back there is a member pro tem, and she should be joining us shortly. Dick Van Bree is another co-chair of our committee. We have 3 co-chairs. So sometimes the people call us Larry, Moe, and Curly, but we still get the job done. Mike Mendoza is our team chief of our water and sanitation team. Mike, back there with the water gun. And Eric Czar is assistant general manager of First Residential, our HOA's management team, and he is a valued member of our team. Eric, raise your hand there, buddy. Jean Sandoval is our member of the Homeowner Association Board of Directors, and she's the board liaison for our committee. And worked very hard to help us and assist us and give us guidance and direction. So I'd like to thank Jean Sandoval back. At this time, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce our new mayor for the city of Beaumont, Mayor Mike Lara, who would like to take a few minutes to address us. The mayor has been a Beaumont resident all his life, and he graduated from Beaumont High School in 1978, and is well versed in all things Beaumont. He knows all the dirt, all the gossip, all the other stuff. He won't be able to stay too long, he said, but we did want to afford him an opportunity to speak to us. Mayor Lara.
Well, let me, good evening. It's a big group, so let me just apologize up front, because this is my first public speaking engagement as mayor, so forgive me if I bore you or put you to sleep. I lived here all my life, as Fred indicated, and I graduated from CBU out in Riverside in 2003. One of those kind of late bloomers, you'll say, that went back to school during my business career. I'm a building official for the County of Riverside. Been with the County of Riverside for 30 years. Responded to 2 earthquakes. We had the Loma Prieta earthquake and then the Northbridge earthquake, as far as a building inspector to inspect damage to structures and roadways and things like that. Been on council for just over a year. This is my first year. Lots more work than I thought it would be, but it's all moving in the right direction. So I just want to spend a little bit of time letting you know what our city staff has been up to in regards to preparing for El Nino. City staff has created an El Nino committee. It's made up of the County of Riverside Emergency Management Department, the Water District, Beaumont Unified School District, Chamber of Commerce, Fire, and Police Department. They've been working on these plans for quite some time. They have a maintenance program right now where our maintenance group will go around and clean out all the drainage culverts and drains to make sure that they're staying open. So when you do get these rain events, the water's flowing and not backing up. We've set aside, or we've made contracts for emergency contractors that have heavy equipment for removal of debris in emergency situations. We've got one on each end of the city. one in the desert area and then one in the Riverside area. We've also had Boy Scouts and the Interact group fill sandbags. We passed out over 900 sandbags on Saturday. We filled 2,500 for emergency services, and we supplied bags through the fire department, and we also supply sand to fill your own bags. Josh has also provided training for multiple housing developments throughout the city. I believe you or some of the folks here have had that training. We also provide training for the residents at City Hall, as well as updating our own emergency operating plan for the city itself. What I brought with me today was reverse 911 applications. They're on the back table, and you can also find that on our city's website. We've had it moved just today to the front. So if you go on the Beaumont City website, you should be able to sign up for the reverse 911, where they'll send out messages of flooded areas, the things that are going on that you all need to be aware of as it happens in Beaumont. And with that, I'll turn this back over to Fred. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming. We have to address some of the little technical support items here. Luckily, we have a James to take care of it for us. While he's working that, I want to take a minute to outline our program for tonight. After the speakers finish their presentations, we'll have an intermission for about 10 minutes. That allows you time to visit the prize tables back there. Now, you were given a ticket, and the thought of the one ticket and the 4 prizes is you do an internal assessment. Well, what do I need most in my house? Is water storage the issue? Then you see Mike Mendoza back there. Put your ticket in there for the drawing, for the water storage drawing. You may say, well, sandbags are my big issue. And the prize for sandbags, there's 2 prizes for that. There's 10 filled sandbags, filled by Fred Weck and his wife. And I will deliver those to 2 winners to your driveway. Now, if you say, I've got an embankment up there behind me that's been problematic for the last 5 years, I'm not going to climb up there and put them up on the embankment. But I'll put them in your driveway. We also have water moisture sensors back there. It's a prize of 3 small ones. You can put them under your leaky faucet in your kitchen sink, laundry room, water heater out in the garage, and it'll give you an early warning system when there's water on the floor. If you have a question for a panel of presenters, there's a question card you can fill out. Hopefully, after the presentations are done, we will have answered 80–90% of your questions. But nonetheless, during the intermission, you can fill out a question card. Then we'll break into a panel format and answer the questions that have been submitted on paper to us. Before I give my presentation, I want to emphasize that we're not giving this town hall meeting to scare you or to alarm you, but to raise your level of consciousness and to make you more aware so you can make informed decisions on the level of preparedness that you might want to take, tips that you might want to learn if you're driving out in the community outside of Four Seasons where there's floods, flood and muds flowing across the road. So it's just to keep you better informed. Now, we've been accused by more than one Four Seasons resident, one is sitting right over there, that we arranged the 4.5 earthquake last week and the 3 days of solid rain that gave us nearly 4 inches as a way of boosting attendance for our meeting tonight. And I just want to say here and now, I had nothing to do with it. Thank you. Okay, as a homeowner, I'm looking for the little, oh, okay, I don't need that. As a homeowner here in Four Seasons, I've been here 8 years, I'm interested in what I can do to protect our stuff. But first of all, our first guest speaker is Licia Elzig from the Red Cross. I'd like to invite her up to come and give her presentation now.
Very crazy high-tech stuff here. Let's see here. Starting off with what is El Nino. One thing real quickly, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And it is really inspiring to see so many people out here who are willing to spend some time to learn about being prepared for this. It's really a very cool thing. Also, I have a terrible cold. My voice has been cracking all day, so if I start making really squeaky noises, I'm not falling apart. I just have a cold. Hopefully you'll have a little chuckle and we can move on and you'll be able to understand me. So I apologize for that. What is El Nino? I mean, we've all heard about it. We've been hearing about it for months. Everybody's been telling us that it's coming. But what really causes an El Nino? And I'll spend a couple of minutes telling you about what that's all about. An El Nino occurs when there's an excessive amount of warming in the Pacific Ocean. I'm going to show you a graph here in a couple of minutes that will show you what's been happening in our Pacific Ocean here that causes this. And what happens is when we have that extensive warming of the Pacific Ocean, it causes the Pacific jet stream to split. And the weather that would normally occur, for example, in Washington and Oregon, moves dramatically further south, and we begin experiencing it here in California. During an El Nino year, the jet stream, as it says there, moves to California and Arizona. And we experience it more severely here in California because we have this thing called the Pacific Ocean that sits right next to us. Here's a diagram that kind of shows you what this jet stream thing is all about. This yellow area here shows where the ocean is warming, and we've had extraordinarily warm ocean temperatures, and that's one of the reasons they're predicting this to be a very extreme El Nino year. And what happens is it causes this jet stream, which normally goes like this, to split off, and we have this extra current down here where this purple line is. And as you can see, it is right over Southern California. And that's the technicality of what causes an El Nino to happen. We have the high ocean temperatures, which causes the split in that Pacific jet stream, and that's what causes all that wet weather that they normally would experience up north to be happening down here. Here's another little diagram. You can see this is showing how there's the expectation that the northwest is going to be warmer and drier than normal this year. And of course down here you can see the purple area where we're going to be experiencing a whole lot of wetness. And that's what El Nino is all about. Again, we're experiencing warmer weather in the northern areas, cooler, wetter weather in the southern areas. And one significant thing is that the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which otherwise known as NOAA, they're predicting this to be the strongest El Nino on record. And I have to say that when I was first approached by Gene Sandoval making a presentation at this, I put this PowerPoint together in November. And since that time period, NOAA and the National Weather Service and many other authorities on the weather have come out and repeatedly said that this is going to be a very, very strong El Nino. Much stronger than what they were telling us when I first put this PowerPoint together. We have all different officials, all different authorities telling us that it's going to be very, very significant. A NASA climatologist is telling us that California, Southern California, might have dangerous amounts of rain. NOAA is predicting a 60% greater than normal rainfall, and the National Weather Service predicts a peak in late fall and early winter. And if you haven't looked at your calendar lately, we are in early winter, so we can start expecting to see those storms. And we saw one last week, which fortunately we didn't have really tremendous damage because of that. Here's something we've already seen. This picture was taken on October 15th. It was a storm that happened in the middle part of the state. It wasn't technically an El Nino storm. This is Interstate 5 near Foreman. And as you can see, we have all kinds of rocks and debris all over the road. Traffic is at a standstill. This happened on October 15th. This was basically a one-day storm. And it brought the 5 freeway through the Grapevine to a standstill. This is something that happened very near there. This is off of Lake Hughes Road, which is kind of on the north end of the Grapevine. As you can see here by the currents of the mud flow there, not only do you have a car that's completely buried in mud, you can see how the current of the water is eroding away at the hillside here. So when we have this flooding, these waters are very, very powerful. And I guarantee you that van did not start in the position where it ended up. It probably was at least a half a mile away before it ended up there. Here's another picture on Lake Hughes Road. We have a creek that's flooding, very nearly overtaking the bridge there. Very extreme flooding, very, very rapidly. And this is the kind of thing we can expect for El Nino. Here's another one. This is in Tehachapi, same storm. Right here we have a car that's upside down. This is a stream that is normally just a trickle, and it turned into a massive river within a matter of minutes. And this is what happened the next day when it was all over. This is what we found. This is State Route 58, which runs through Tehachapi and connects to Bakersfield. Major state route, major trucking route, and this is what it looked like. The officials said that at least 200 vehicles, including 75 tractor trailers, were stuck in this mud, and in some places that was 20 feet deep. I have a little thing on there about a truck driver. He called 911, and he said it looked like a roiling ocean with cars floating on the ocean and bobbing around. That was on the freeway in front of him. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, if you've ever stood next to a big rig, a tractor trailer like this, if you walk up to a door like that, you're going to be looking up like this. This is about halfway up the door here, and that's at least 4 feet deep. Those things are very high off the ground. And as it says here, in some places there was up to 20 feet of mud that they had to remove. This was the aftermath. This was the day after the storm. That's just one storm that lasted about 48 hours, and it was not even officially an El Nino storm. So that's the kind of flooding that we can potentially look at here. What can we expect in the pass area? I did some research on this. FEMA has a website where you can look up your flood mapping for your community. It has it for all over the country, but you can look it up by zip code, and it shows you a little map of what the flood hazards are in our area here. And Corporal Galbraith is going to be talking to you a little bit more about the flood hazards here. But I'll show you the diagrams here in a second. But the good news is that according to FEMA flood mapping, there is not really a horrendous, tremendous risk here in the Beaumont-Banning Pass area. The bad news is Gorman and Tehachapi also do not show high flood risks according to the FEMA flood mapping. So I guess what we learned from that is that in El Nino, anything is possible. Flooding can happen anywhere. So even if we might normally not experience dramatic things like that, in an El Nino year, it can certainly happen. Here's the Banning floodplain map. You can see here these areas here where it's kind of a blue-green color. There's a few areas here. Those are considered 1% inundation, which means basically a minor potential of flooding to happen there. The areas here in orange, those are basically where there's hardly any impact, any possibility of serious flooding. That's according to regular storm data from FEMA. This is Beaumont here, south of the freeway. You can see there really isn't anything here at all. Minimal flood risk everywhere. Now we go to Gorman and the 5 freeway, and we can see that, gosh, there is not a whole lot of blue there. There's not a whole lot of colors there to indicate that that is a high-risk storm area. So those FEMA maps are very helpful, but again, just to reinforce that during an El Nino year, anything can happen. Anything can happen. Another thing that I wanted to make you aware of is the flood warning terminology that we hear. You hear those emergency broadcasts with that annoying and they give you the warning or the watch. It helps to have an understanding of what those mean. A flood watch means that flooding is possible, maybe even imminent. Be ready to get to higher ground if you need to. A flood warning means that it is happening or about to happen. Same thing with flash flood and warning and watch. The watch means that it is imminent and highly possible. The warning means that it is happening. So if you hear that annoying little beep on your TV and it tells you that there is a flash flood warning in your area, that means that it is happening. So that's the distinction that I hope you can make there, the difference between warning and watch and what that actually means. NOAA has, let me go back here. NOAA has radio stations that you can listen to. My voice is squeaky, I'm getting embarrassed. NOAA has radio stations that you can listen to. There's all kinds of emergency radio stations you can listen to. And you can even get your cell phones. If you have a smartphone, most smartphones have an app where you can have it alert you when there is a weather alert. It will make that same annoying noise, and it will tell you that there is a flood that's imminent. So if you have that feature on your cell phone, you might want to activate that. This is a website that I really encourage everyone to take a look at. It's www.ready.gov. It is the government website that teaches you how to be essentially prepared for everything. There's extremely detailed information on there. You're going to get a lot of very helpful information tonight, but if you're the type of person that really wants to get into things, this is a great website to check out because they have very, very detailed planning strategies for you for every type of disaster, whether it's a flood, a fire, an earthquake, whatever. So that's a website that I encourage you to take a look at because they give you information about every kind of disaster we might experience. What if my home is severely damaged? Okay, let's just kind of jump into the scenario that that severe El Nino storm has happened. One of the things that was kind of alarming to me when I was doing my research for this presentation let me see, I have his name here. He is the FEMA Deputy Associate Administrator for Insurance and Mitigation. He says, I quote, "If there was ever a time to buy flood insurance, now is the time." Now, that's coming from FEMA. And I realize that that's a very personal choice that people can make, but when you have FEMA saying something like that, it kind of gets your attention. If you are interested in looking into flood insurance, there is a website that you can go to. It is www.floodsmart.gov, floodsmart.gov. It is a government website. It's not maintained by any commercial entity, and you will get very, very helpful information about if you need flood insurance, what type of coverage you need, and all about flood insurance. So if you're concerned about that, curious about it, floodsmart.gov will give you some really helpful information. Now, what if this happens and you don't have flood insurance? There are people out there that will help you. In fact, most homeowners association, or not homeowners association, homeowners insurance is not going to cover flood damage. Most of it doesn't. They might cover, painting the inside of your house if you have a leak or something, but they're not going to cover major damage like this. There are organizations out there that will help you if this happens to you. A few of them are the American Red Cross. I got to give us a plug. I'm in full uniform tonight, wearing my red vest. If you're ever in trouble, look for the red vest because we're there to help you. VOAD is another entity, another organization to help. Local charities help, community groups help. Whenever a major disaster like this happens, there are always resources available to you. So don't feel like you're all alone. You are not alone in this if something happens like that. For the Red Cross, we'll provide temporary lodging if your home is uninhabitable. We'll provide you with money for food, clothing, and necessities that if you have to evacuate very quickly and you don't have the clothes, you have the clothes on your back and that's all you have, we will provide money for you to get the basic necessities that you need. If you had to get out before you could grab your glasses or your prescription medication, will help with that. We also have mental health services available to people. Experiencing a disaster like this can be a very traumatic experience. And I've been in other situations with the Red Cross, primarily wildfires, dealing with people that have lost everything in a fire. And I'm sure that Shane and Tim can relate to this. People are absolutely devastated. They don't know what to do. And so we have mental health services to help also if you experience that. And we also have people, they're called caseworkers, that will assist you in recovery planning if you are in a situation where you sustain severe damage like that. They're experts. They can connect you to all different types of charities and different resources to help you plan your recovery and try and start getting back to normal. Those are some of the things that the Red Cross does, and everything that the Red Cross does is absolutely free. It's not a loan, it's a gift, and it's based on the generous donations of the American people. VOAD. VOAD stands for Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. VOAD is an umbrella organization that coordinates the activities of other volunteer organizations in a disaster. We have chapters all over California. We do have a chapter here in Riverside County, and our VOAD has members that will be able to help with a whole variety of different issues that you might experience if you have experienced severe damage as a result of flooding. We have people who do debris removal, appliance replacement, furniture replacement, cleanup, demolition, reconstruction. I'll just say a couple off the top of my head. The Southern Baptist Convention is a member of VOAD, and they do a lot of debris removal and whatnot. I'm getting the notice that I need to hurry up here. Okay, what if I'm evacuated? Okay, if you are evacuated, the Red Cross has evacuation shelter agreements with a variety of locations all over Riverside County. Usually an evacuation shelter is going to be in a gymnasium, a high school gymnasium, and we have used Beaumont High School Gymnasium on a number of occasions for shelters. They all have showering and hygiene facilities. They're all ADA compliant. It's not the Ritz. You'll be given just enough to basically survive: a cot, a blanket, a pillow, comfort kit, 3 meals a day, and a snack. It's also a great point of information. Emergency management people will show up usually at least once a day to give a briefing on the status of the emergency. And the Red Cross also has a Safe and Well program that allows you on the internet to connect with family and let them know that you're okay. Now, if you have to evacuate, these are some things that you might want to think about. Now, as I said, an evacuation shelter is not the Ritz. And it might be a good idea to have these things sort of set aside just in case. prescription medication, glasses, towels, change of clothes, comfort items like maybe your own pillow and your own blanket. Maybe you have your own special shampoo or soaps that you like to use. Books, iPods, anything that you can use for entertainment, cell phones and chargers. You might want to bring important papers with you and not leave them in your house. And if you do bring them, we encourage you to leave them locked in your car and not bring them into the shelter. Real quickly, can you bring your pet to the shelter? In a word, no. Red Cross has gotten some flack in the past from people who have been not allowed to bring their pets into a shelter. I myself am a dog lover. Sometimes I like dogs more than I like people. But this is a very real reason that we do not allow that. There are people that are allergic to dogs and cats, whatever your pet happens to be. There are people who are afraid of dogs and cats. Pets are disoriented and often hard to control in that kind of a situation. I know that my dog would be going crazy. He'd want to run around and meet everybody and check out if anybody's got any food hidden anywhere and bothering people. And some people, that's not okay with them. So we have to say no to pets. And as I said, we've gotten some flack in the past for that. If you have pets, we will help you find a place to keep them. In fact, that's one of the things that County Animal Services will help with, depending on the scale of the disaster. There are ways to help you with your pet. If you didn't have time to grab your medication or your glasses, there are registered nurses at the facilities, and they will arrange to get that prescription medication for you or your glasses. And this is what it looks like when you show up to a Red Cross shelter. Like I said, look for the red vest. Hopefully you'll find a smiling person like this. And they will register you. We do require that you register. And we want your name and contact information. That's just to help us know that you're okay and keep track of you. Family members come looking for you. People come and go. We need to know who's been in the shelter. And it also helps us get a step up in helping you plan your recovery. We have that information already. This is what a shelter looks like when it's set up and we haven't opened the doors. Like I said, it's pretty sparse. Not a whole lot of comfort there, but at least you'll be safe and well and warm and fed. This is what it looks like after it's full. Kind of close quarters. We do have guidelines for how far apart the cots have to be to make sure you have some degree of personal space. We make sure that we have aisles here that are wide enough for emergency personnel and gurneys and whatnot to get in there if there's a medical emergency. But that's what it's going to look like inside that shelter if you go to one. Now I want to make one side note on this. A number of people, if they have recreational vehicles and they're evacuated, they will come and they will park their RV in the parking lot. That's fine. We have no problem with that. In fact, if you have pets, that might be the best option for you. We have no problem if you want to park your RV in the parking lot, come in for meals, come in to use the facilities, come in for briefings, just come in to hang out if you're lonely and bored, whatever. So that, if you have an RV, that might be an option for you if you were ever evacuated. And as I said, if you have pets, that's really a good option if you have that available to you. Real quickly, FEMA's 5 Ps of evacuation. And this is something you find on that ready.gov website. People, prescriptions, paper, personal needs, and priceless items. When you're making your plan, those are the things that you need to think of. Who do I need to connect with? What do I need medically? What kind of papers do I need to have? Passports, checkbooks, whatever. Personal needs, personal comfort items, and of course priceless items that you might not want to leave behind if you're evacuated. And when you know there's a potential for a disaster like now, it's a good idea to have these things ready in advance so you're not scrambling around at the last minute to get that. Another thing that I wanted to touch on real briefly, unfortunately, when there are disasters, there are things like looters, and maybe Corporal Galbraith will touch on this a little bit, I don't know. You want to protect your home, okay? If you have to shelter in place, which I believe Spring's going to be talking about, or if you have to evacuate, think now about how you can protect your home when you're either sheltering in place or when you're gone. Some real basic things here. And you want to discourage criminals from your home. And as much as we like to think that everybody comes together in a disaster, they do, but there is also an element that likes to take advantage. Install deadbolt locks on all your entry doors, lock your doors at all times. Have secure locks on sheds and outbuildings so people can't hide in there. Install outdoor lighting and have it on a timer. And of course you want to make sure you have all that approved by your architectural committee before you install anything. And have your interior lights on a timer. This is assuming that there's power. There may not be, which in that case you've prepared, but you can't use it. And there are types of random timers that don't go off at the same time all the time for turning lights on and off, and you can get something like that. Trim all your shrubbery in your front and backyard, again, to compliance with the Four Seasons Homeowners Association regulations. Make sure you can see the street from your front door and your back fence. The whole idea is don't give bad guys a place to hide. Criminals are opportunists, and they're going to go to the house that's easiest for them to hide, conceal themselves, and get into. Don't let your house be attractive to criminals. So that's just another thing to think about as far as preparing for this. What in the world does all this have to do with El Nino? Well, we tie it all together, have a plan, have sufficient food and water, have medical and comfort supplies, carry an emergency kit in your car, get your house ready, and be prepared to safely, reasonably, and legally take care of your family. Be prepared. Don't be like these guys. I found this and I'm like, I literally cannot believe this really happened. This guy's on the phone booth here, talking on the phone, shoulder high in the water. And I guess this guy with his beer keg, he might be described as making the best out of a bad situation. I don't know. But you don't want to be those people. Be prepared, enjoy the rest of the speakers, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Alicia. We appreciate that information.
Sure thing.
I'm going to work here at the podium because I have some things I want to hold up and show you. Okay, again, the theme of my presentation is basically, as a Four Seasons Beaumont homeowner, what do I need to know? And a little bit of it overlaps into Alicia and perhaps some of the other speakers as well. First off is have a plan. If you're going to evacuate, either by direction or by default on your own volition, have an idea where you're going to let your family members know. Check your residence emergency handbook. Now, our Emergency Preparedness Committee created this 2 years ago, and we give thanks primarily to Gene Sandoval for it. We've updated it about 3 weeks ago. It has a lot of information there about all kinds of emergencies and things that you need to get ready to handle these kinds of things. Now, the current thinking in the past has been having food and water for 1 or 2 days. And we had Mike Morrell from the Sacramento Capitol come down, I think he's a state senator, and gave a presentation a year ago and said that really we need a plan for 1 to 2 weeks. We need to be self-sufficient for 1 to 2 weeks. So have food and water for 1 to 2 weeks. Don't forget the pets. And emergency kit for the car. Food, water, blanket, flashlight, cell phone, and maybe even a whistle. Because there's going to be a lot of water on the roads, as you'll see more slides in the future coming on that. And check on your neighbors, especially if they're disabled. Again, we can't emphasize enough about planning ahead. You want to protect personal property and the contents of your home. You can safeguard, since there's going to be a lot of water out and about, you may want to get a Ziploc bag and put your prescription, birth certificates, passports, insurance policy, restraining orders, things like that in there. And have them ready. Check on the status of stored items in the garage and outside storage unit. Here's a picture I took in my garage. Now, you can see that, yeah, we've got some family photos. We've got a few boxes of restraining orders that need to be taken care of. And the purpose of putting them up on little blocks there keeps the water off if the water comes in. Here's one way to store things, on shelving. That helps. Or plastic tubs. Many of you have those. And so that's useful, because if you don't use that, water comes into your garage. Water is the lowest place in your dwelling. Remember, you step from your garage up into your house. So when water comes into your dwelling, it's going to have a higher propensity to get into your garage first. You may say, hey, no problem, I got my stuff stored off-site in one of these self-storage units. No big deal, Fred. Easy. Okay, they're built by the lowest bidder. And let's hope your storage unit is not this one here with the water coming out of it. You say, okay, Fred, what do I do then? Well, for one thing, check on the status and the condition of your stored items, whether they're antiques or cardboard box or whatever. You can go to Walmart for 98 cents, get a 9 by 12 sheet of plastic, drape it over the top of your stored items, antiques, cardboard boxes, whatever valuables. And that allows rain that hits the top to drain off to the side. If you can get a hold of an old pallet or pieces of 2x4 to put your valuables on, you in essence have created kind of a cocoon there, where plastic on top protects from water coming in from roof leaks, and blocks of wood on the bottom to keep the damage from water coming in from other units. Plan ahead, also raise up any key items off of the floor, computer, electronic equipment, and portable heaters. Consider acquiring filled sandbags to protect door openings. We got 2 prizes back there of sandbags. And remember that the garage door sits lower, we mentioned that. When you go back to look at the sandbags, John McLaughlin back there will explain what the deal is with the plastic and the duct tape you see on there. Alicia talked about flood insurance. Remember, it takes, if I paid today for a flood insurance policy, I can't file a claim until 30 days. And that's, I guess, protect insurance companies for people who live on the East Coast. When they see a hurricane coming in 7 days, they run out and buy a flood insurance policy. So you got to wait 30 days. But you can talk to your insurer and kind of get their idea on it. Also remember, do we have any folks here from Sun Lakes or Solera? They were invited. Anyway, the Four Seasons is kind of like an island. We don't have our own power generating plant. We don't have our sewage treatment plant. We don't have our own water treatment plant. We don't have our own natural gas storage, supply, and distribution. So consequently, we are linked by tentacles to outside sources of those things that may be 10 or 15, 20 miles away. So while you go out and say, hey, there's no water in my yard, can't understand why I don't have power, don't have water supply, it could be for something that's happened a couple of miles away. So we need to be vigilant of that. Drinking water, we have one of the storage tubs, 55-gallon storage tubs back there, and with the chemical additive, it will store water safely for 5 years. You may say, well, no problem. If there's a flood or anything like that, or my water supply to the house is disturbed, I'll just run down to Walmart. Well, guess what, folks? The employees at Walmart have already beat you to it for their families, and they've cleaned the shelves. Electrical power. Now, some people have generators. Generators come with their own set of issues. You have to safely operate it so you don't get electrocuted. You have to safely store the fuel. And they do make nowadays generators that run on both propane and natural gas. And there's at least one resident here in Four Seasons that has that. And if you talk to me afterwards, I'll give you his address. If you don't have electrical power, you need to have batteries for flashlights, batteries for household lanterns, so that at least you can have light at night. Okay, if we don't have, if we can't use our toilets, and we have to use something else, this little gem on the left is my personal favorite in my house that I've got, and the 5-gallon bucket came from Home Depot. You get garbage liners and put inside, and you can buy online for about $6, the plastic lid to go on top. If you want a more primitive approach, you can have a 5-gallon bucket with a garbage liner and 2 planks. The reason I like the one on the left, I bought it on sale and it came already with occupied signs on it. That way, if you're using it, you can inform others that it's already in use. When you do an assessment of your home, start at the top of your home, your dwelling, and fix roof leaks and ceiling leaks. You probably already have fixed them because we've already had some rains last week. But that's the place to start. Work your way down. Clean leaf debris out of your gutters. You can see, it doesn't show up very well, but there's leaf debris here, and then it's cleaned out. And it's nice and free-flowing for the rain to come in and go on. Now this shot maybe isn't the best shot, but the point I'm trying to make is right there. And there's a lot of homes in Four Seasons where the 2 fascia boards come together. What's underneath are the rafter tails. But with heavy rains for a sustained period of time, that cut piece of end wood can soak up a lot of water. We've had a week of dry weather, and if yours are like that, and there's a gap, or you have splits on the ends of your fascia board, get some caulking in that. If you can't do it, you don't want to climb on a ladder, you hire a grandson or a handyman. But if you don't take care of the wood fascia board, and most people don't, Then come summertime, you're going to see a lot of splitting. On the downspouts themselves, water comes in the gutter up there, it goes down this downspout into the side drains and comes out in what we call an air valve here. Now, a couple of aspects related to that. When the water comes out, that air valve, it kind of sheets across the lawn till it hits the sidewalk. Then it goes across the sidewalk, it hits the gutter, and then it goes on down the street. Now, what makes that particularly important this time of year is we had a frost this morning. We've had several frosts. I counted on my calendar 13 frosts we've had, where it got down to freezing. The point being, if you have rainwater draining out of your air valve across the lawn, across the sidewalk at night, come morning when the walkers come along, they're going to hit ice. So be vigilant of that, and then make sure to have those air valves cleaned out. On ground drain inlets, you can see the one on the left is clear and clean. The one in the middle has got leaves around it, and there's a different type of ground inlet for your side drains on the right side. Pull those off, they're plastic caps, and make sure they're not clogged with leaves and wind-blown debris. Also, when we have a lot of rain, we have a problem with insects. They're looking for cooler, drier places to dwell, and it's your home. That's where they're headed for. So you may want to talk to an exterminator now before the problem gets a lot worse. Also, a lot of our homes here have slopes and embankments, and if you're vulnerable from runoff from a slope, what do you do? The one on the left here has a combination of a little bit of vegetation and some bark mulch. And it doesn't show up that well on the photo on the right, but it's a similar situation. The vegetation, if you've got it, that will help slow down the water. The roots tie into the earth and the soil. That works pretty good. Now, here's a shot that I took on December 4th. And the point here is if you live on the perimeter, you need to be very vigilant about what's outside your particular perimeter property line. And this is off of Bighorn, or in the area of Bighorn here. Now, you see there's two V-shaped concrete ditches. There's one here, and then there's one up above it. I walked about 20 feet up and took a picture of the one above it. Folks, it is silted, chocolate block full of silt that ran off this hill here. We turned it into the builder, and the builder cleaned it out. There were several other places I walked around on the 4th of December and found we turned into the builder, and they jumped on it. But the homeowner here needs to be vigilant and watch these two drainage ditches, because if they fill up, the silt and sand and mud was going to go in and go right in his sliding door. And you may have to put sandbags up here to help act as a deterrent. Just be vigilant. Covered slopes, even partially covered slopes, can be vulnerable. There are some bare patches here. If I was a homeowner there, I would probably get some bark mulch and put in the open areas. And at the bottom, I would probably put sandbags. We're going to get a lot of rain. There's pros and cons to bark mulch. It's cheap. Homeowner can apply it in bags, or have a landscape contractor deliver a big pile of it in your driveway. You can put it out when you want to. It works best on smaller slopes with lighter rains. It doesn't work all that great on really tall, bare slopes, as we show there. Plastic sheets or tarps on a slope surface can work fairly well. Try to get the thickest plastic sheet possible. If you get something up near 6 mil thickness, that would be helpful. It can be held in place top and bottom with sandbags. I've got a picture coming up to help you on that. You can place staples in there interspersed. Staples meaning the big garden staples, landscape staples. Tarps work better, but they're much more expensive. Plastic sheeting is really cheap. And once you puncture the tarps with these big these big garden staples, you can really destroy the water protection effectiveness of those expensive tarps. This is a staged photo I set up just to give you an idea of the sandbags at the top, maybe coming down the side, and the plastic sheeting there, so that the water doesn't hit that soil and erosion start getting a mudslide going. And there's some of the size of the staples you can put in there. And that way when the wind comes along, that plastic sheet doesn't balloon up. The staples help hold it down. Driveway cracks. On the left, it doesn't show up that well, but I'll try to highlight it. There's a crack right along here, and it goes along there. What happens is during periods of sustained rain, the concrete cracks that we have in our driveway, when the concrete was fresh, they were putting a trowel in there and scoring it because it will crack in this way. It cracks attractively right angles. That's great. But over time it separates. This is a picture of my driveway. It's a half-inch gap on the right. And water gets in there after successive rainfalls. It saturates and supersaturates the soil beneath. So the concrete slab driveway doesn't have the bearing pressure that it did when it was first poured. So consequently, when a furniture delivery truck or your big RV or appliance delivery truck arrives, they can crack it. One fix is to fill the driveway construction joints to keep the water out. Here's a tube that I've been using. It's Home Depot. Costs about 60 cents a linear foot. Keep the water out from underneath your driveway slab. Also, in looking at car, truck, and RV, you're going to be out moving around during El Nino. You want to check the condition and tread of the vehicle tires. You don't want a bald tire like that one shown there. Replace the windshield wipers now, windshield wiper blades now while they're in stock. Because with my luck, halfway through El Nino, I try to go down and get windshield wiper blades. Oh, we're out of stock with special order. Because everybody in the world is going and replacing those. Replace them now. Check your vehicle lights, especially the brake lights. You're going to be driving a lot of rain, rainy weather. Streets are going to be wet. Could be ice on the streets. And have a mechanic check your battery and brake. After 3 years, car battery's kind of over the hump on its useful life. And you may want to have a mechanic check that out for you. Gas stations, where we get gas from those pumps run on electricity, and gas stations do not have backup electrical generators. So if you're in an outage here, you can probably guess that gas stations nearby are in an outage. So treat half full as a new empty. By that, keep your gas tank full, and that way, if you do have an outage for 2 or 3 or 4 days, you're not hurting because you thought ahead of time and kept your gas tank near full. Now, our committee, you see Yo-Yo on there. Our committee, in fact, when we prepared our residence emergency handbook here, felt that we are, we're not paranoid, we're not, super prepper kind of people necessarily, but we like to plan ahead. I was a former Boy Scout, so, be prepared is kind of built in our life. But we have trains that go by with anhydrous ammonia, chlorine, and other toxic chemicals on the railroads. And we have earthquakes. We had an earthquake last week, which we just organized just for you folks. And wildfires and severe weather. Yo-yo is you're on your own. That's what Mike Morrell from Sacramento came down and told us last year. He said, don't plan on people from the city or county coming out and arranging foot massages for you. You're going to be on your own to provide food and water for 1 or 2 weeks, perhaps. But again, I want to make a pitch for the Residence Emergency Handbook. It's got a lot of useful things, not on all kinds of disasters, and it's very, very good reading. And the committee worked very hard to put that together for you folks. Jean Sandoval, are you here? There she is. She wanted to speak about the Residence Emergency Handbook.
Hi, my name is Jean Sandoval, your favorite board member. Okay, this handbook we sent out to you back in 2014. We made some minor changes like Fred talked about, being prepared for 7 to 14 days. That's really important. You need to have enough water, food, medication, everything for your pets for 14 days. And we also mentioned that we could have a hazardous spill. So you need to have a place where you're going to go and seal up all the doors and windows in one spot. I have my bathroom chosen, and that's where me and my animals are going to hide out. So this booklet takes you through all of those steps on what you need to do, the food, the water, how do you shelter in place, and the 4 emergencies that could happen in our area. This little thing I gave you, there's also an extra one in this booklet, because I know there's usually 2 people in a household. This is your medication sheet. Fill it out in pencil, because a lot of times it's changed, your medication's changes or whatever. Fill it out and get a magnet and put it on the side of your refrigerator. This is good for if paramedics need to come into your home and you're unconscious, and you won't be able to tell them what your medical history is or your medication. So The paramedics and also the search and rescue team or our survey team will be coming to homes that need help. We will also be looking at this sheet, looking for your medication. Do we need to evacuate? You take your medication with you. So please fill this out for each member of the household and put it in this little bag and put it on the side of your refrigerator. A green card. This is really important. If after an emergency, an earthquake or an El Nino, any type of emergency where we have an issue, you need to put this in your window if you are safe, if you are okay in your home. So in your very front window, just take it onto the window. If you're not okay, say for example you have injury in your home, or maybe you can't even get to this green paper, do not put it in the window, and we will be there to check on you. Okay, so this paper is very important. It also has a list of tips on what you need to do to prepare. I have this right by my front window, so but also put it with your little green or with your plastic bag on your refrigerator, and you will know where it is in case you need to use it. So thank you very much. This is a great showing, and thank you very much for coming out.
All right, can you hear me okay? I've never worn one of these. I feel like with this giant dance floor and this on my head, I want to do a music video or something out here for you guys. I'm Josh Galvin. I'm a corporal with the Beaumont Police Department. I'm over with our cops division, so I'm over the Neighborhood Watch program. So many of you have seen me when I came in here before dressed up like a homeless guy out front asking for money, and then also going through some of your cars. I went out tonight to check on all your cars. No, I'm just kidding. Last time people left stuff in their cars, but we're not going to go over that tonight. Also, the other thing that I'm over is the emergency service department for the city. And I've been so busy with this stuff going on. Some of you guys have heard me speak at the city. And then I came here and spoke to some of you here. And you guys must love me because you're back for a third time to hear me again. But we're just going to go over some of it. We're not going to go into the amount that we did because there's been other people that have already given some of the information out. So I'm just going to go over some of the basic stuff. From the flooding, it's going to happen. We're going to get stuff around the city. I'm not going to say it. That's the other thing. I also got to always come out and tell you this. I'm a cop, so I see things how they are, and I'm going to tell you how they are. So I'm going to tell you straight that we're going to have flooding. There's no doubt about it that we are going to have flooding that's going to come up in the city. We've been looking over all kinds of stuff, trying to have remedies for it and so forth. And I think we've improved a lot. But there's just a few pictures that we have of some of the things that may occur during El Nino. We're going to have a lot of flooding, which means a lot of debris going into the roadways. We're going to have road closures because the debris's gone out far enough. I think this is over on Santa Mateo Canyon out there, going the back way. We're going to have erosion damage. It'll go underneath the roads. We won't know what's going on, and all of a sudden it'll collapse in there because of the water that's gotten under it. Wipe away roads. Another thing that's going to come with it is the storms that are going to come. We are going to have the winds that will come with it, the thunderstorms, and from that we'll have down power lines, we'll have down trees. It'll take out power. We need to remember that when we're getting prepared for El Nino. Also, contaminated water. I hope none of you guys have water like that right now, because this is what it can get to a point when it becomes contaminated. So that's why it's so important to get prepared beforehand and get your water. Hopefully some of you can win the big jugs back there. We'll go over real quick. In 2010, this is just an example of what we had in the city. In 2010, it rained in December from like the 16th to the 23rd or 24th. Every day it rained, and it was just building up. Over here off of this area here is a reservoir that was set up. There was a lot of the building that was going on, all this housing in Sundance community. This is Xenia, 6th Street. Here's the swap meet right here. I know you guys all know Applebee's right here. dialysis center, UFS center. So during that time, it just continued to fill up. This did what it was supposed to do. It filled up with water on it. But it filled up so much, all of a sudden the levee broke. It started to come, the water started to come over the top of it and started to just spread out to the homes and everything there. And then it looked like this. This is Xenia and 8th Street in the city. This wasn't El Nino. This was an El Nino year. This was just a time when we were having a lot of rain that was coming down for a long amount of, or a long period of time. You can see how bad it started to get. This is afterwards when we were doing some of the cleanup in the area. You can see the apartment complexes. There's some houses around there. We came out, started sandbagging. Yeah, that is not a good example of how you sandbag. The one back there looks a lot better, but when you're in a hurry, it does the trick. That's what ended up happening, the erosion damage that happened to that levee that broke. And from the results of that, just from that small little levee that broke, the results of it is it started to go out and to go towards all the homes that were right there. We had some water that was going into the homes. We had to start sandbagging in front of the homes that were there. There's the dialysis center. It started to seep underneath the door while people were in there getting treatment. We had to figure out what to do with them during that time as well. We closed off some of the roadways. Applebee's hated us because we closed off the road and nobody could get in or out of the businesses that were there. We started sandbagging in the area, and then we started doing the cleanups. That was just from a little bit of rain that we have. And I can tell you, we weren't prepared. And my biggest thing is be prepared. You guys are going to hear that all night long. Be prepared, be prepared. I was a Boy Scout. I have 2 boys that are in Boy Scouts. I have one that's in Cub Scouts. Motto, be prepared. So I definitely live by this, that we have to be prepared for any time that we have a disaster. Because the only thing tougher than planning for a disaster is explaining why you didn't. In the city, we have had past problems, and I can go over some of the hot spots of where we have had the problems at. Obviously, if anybody's been up, you go all the way up Highland Springs to Brookside, up here in this area, from Brookside to, or from Highland Springs to Cherry Avenue. That place just, it was built, that was actually built to be a wash, be able to catch the rain and move it down that area. So now the road just completely gets washed out anytime we have a little bit of rain. We also have 2 waterways. If you take these washes, these creeks, they go all the way up, and they actually start up in the hills, up in Oak Glen, and they come all the way down. Marshall Creek comes into here, so it runs out of that area, runs through some houses, comes out over by the high school, is one of them, and it keeps continuing to go down underneath Oak Valley Parkway, and then underneath the freeway, the 10 freeway, and then it opens up and goes out that way. And then we also have it where it breaks off and it comes through just below the sports park and Cougar. And then it also goes under Oak Valley Parkway, and then along some of the houses, and then right back out through there. Those creeks will fill up. There is no doubt about it. We've done a lot of construction in that area now to build up Oak Valley, where the water will hopefully run through there properly, but we're still watching that. Some of the other areas over off of Palm, just north of Oak Valley Parkway, that's the Edison easement, and just all the water flows in there, goes down to Oak Valley Parkway, and so it causes flooding from Cherry all the way over to Beaumont Avenue on Oak Valley Parkway. Usually when you drive through there, you know when it just starts raining a little bit, it turns into a really closed 1-lane road at that point. We also recently, because of all the development that has gone on over there in the Sundance area, that caused a lot of issues. But they are working their tails off on getting waterway systems put into place before the big rain comes. We just had an incident during this last rain where it was flowing right down in there, but unfortunately we didn't have the tumbleweeds pulled out in time, so it backed up and it just started to rise right there at Cherry and Oak Valley Parkway. But luckily they were able to free the grate there and let the water pass. Some of the other places are Stewart Park. That's actually a basin, a catch basin for our water. The Stewart Park area, that will fill up. That's what it's supposed to do. And it continues to go south all the way into the Palm Elementary School. That's also a catch basin that's over there. And if that fills up, directly south of that is the police department. But we know the city doesn't have enough money to buy us a new police department, so hopefully it'll stay in that area and not go any more south of that. Over on Highland Springs and 8th Street, that used to be a real problem area over there. We figured that out. The water now flows out through there, continues to go south on there. A lot of people wonder over here at underneath the freeway, it dips down and on Highland Springs. When that happens, what happens is the water will start to build up in there. Automatically, there's 2 pumps underneath the ground there that'll flip on. And they actually shoot the water back out. So that will not flood under there. That will clear out, and then unfortunately it goes from that area, goes all the way down to Highland Springs and comes out right down here where we are having some problems. Where the ravine's starting to break away and the water's flowing over into the Sun Lakes golf course. Also over on Pennsylvania, and you go to the stop sign of Pennsylvania and First Street. Somebody designed it where it's down and everything goes south. All the water travels south. And then when it gets there, the designer built it so the hills go up. So there's no place really for that water to go. So that's one of the problems that we do get faced with. A few little spots along 5th Street, 6th Street, 4th Street. We have some problems there. So these are all things that we've actually worked with our water district, with our public works. We've been looking at these to try to figure out how we can resolve, you know, the 100-year-old design that was put into it to be able to get the water to flow properly. And we are still working on those things. Like I said, we're working with the water district. We're coordinating with the construction sites here, saying, hey, we need to make sure that you guys got these waterways going, because it's going to be your money that's going to be out there taking care of us if it overfills. Working with the County of Riverside EMD. Shane's here. They do a phenomenal job. They got a task force to go out and take care of business. They're there for us all the time. The reverse 911 system that the mayor talked about, the flyers back there, go onto the website. Basically what the reverse 911 system is once you put in your number, if you go onto the website, you put in your number, because most of us don't have landlines, so we use cell phones. You put your number in there. If there's something that is coming about, we're saying, hey, you know, we need to do an evacuation on Four Seasons, we will actually do a reverse 911, and we will call everybody that's on that list, letting them know what is going on and that we're doing an evacuation. So go on the website, put your phone number in there. Clean up the water basins, they're out there continually. We have vendor contracts, and then the sandbags. And I'm going to go over some of the sandbags here in a second. Evacuation routes. This is what we want to know, right? Because how are we going to be stuck back here in Four Seasons? Evacuation routes, a couple of them that I will say. This is the 10 freeway here, shoots off for the 60. And then we have the 79 goes down into Hemet, San Jacinto. I'm going to tell you right now, do not go south. You will not want to go down into the San Mateo Canyon at all. That place will it'll be washed out. Another one over at Jackrabbit Trail. That's going to be a real iffy place too on the 60 freeway. Some people may decide, well, I'm going to head out to Palm Springs because it's always sunny over there. Most of the time, whenever we get information that there's flash flood warnings, who do you think gets hit first? It's that desert. That whole desert area, they're going to get hit first with flash flooding and stuff like that. So the best way to go if we have to go anywhere is going to go up. We're going to take the 10 freeway. We're going to head out of town that way. A lot of people wonder, okay, well, I know these roads around here. I'm going to get us to the freeway faster so we can cut off everybody, because more than likely if we're in evacuation, it's like... one thing is we're not going to go Highland Springs to the freeway. Because you guys see how it is when it's a senior night at Applebee's, trying to get down that road. It's pretty difficult. So you don't want to go down Highland Springs because it'll just be backed up. So obviously we'd have to go out and try to get up onto the 10 off of Beaumont Avenue because it goes up over the tracks and can get us on the freeway there. One of the things that I will tell you guys is that if you guys are ever in an evacuation situation, and I'll give an example, that in Corona, they said that there was part of the freeway had washed out, so everybody was getting off the freeway because it was all jammed up into there on the 15. But then everybody got off the freeway and jammed every roadway in Corona. So nobody was going anywhere. It was just at a standstill and a mess for the entire city to have to deal with the traffic going on. The easiest thing to do is if we ever have to do an evacuation, you just sit on the freeway and just creep along. Don't think that you can get off the freeway and you know a shortcut to get around, because probably you're going to be one that's going to get stuck in some road that is flooded out, and you won't be, you'll be a lot worse off. All right, sandbags. I think I've gotten some calls from some of you that have wanted enough sandbags to go ahead and create this around your house. Unfortunately, we don't have enough sandbags to do that. The city, we've been working with the fire department. Some of you know that we had a bunch of sandbags that were stolen. We had a lot of donations that came in afterwards, and we were able to receive a lot more sandbags from some companies here in the city. So what we did is the Interact group, which is part of the Rotary Club, and our Boy Scout groups came out and they loaded a lot of sandbags. We had one day, a Saturday, that was open up. Some of you may have came. We passed out about 900 sandbags. They bagged about 2,500 that we've used in emergency situations. We're almost done with those. So we'll be doing another one that we're going to be filling up more. The kids are going to come out and fill up hopefully another 2,500. And we will open that up again to get 10 bags for those that have not gotten it. With that note though, the sandbags are supposed to be used for emergency situations. They're intended for the aid of limiting the potential threat of the flooding. They're not going to stop a flood, but it's going to limit it. It's going to help reduce the damage into your homes. With that, I say be prepared, but with that, if you live up on a hill and there's nothing above you, chances are you probably won't need the sandbags. Try to reserve those for those that either when you turn on your sprinklers, there's a flood out in front of your house and you know that there's always an issue, or you know that the slope in back has caused problems in the past. Obviously, come see me and we'll work something out. But if you know that there isn't any damage to where, let's say the sandbags that we do have for the emergency situations that we have. On sandbagging, a couple of things. Great examples back there, putting the plastic down and then putting the sandbags up over it. They're stacked on top of each other. These are just a few different examples of what to do. If you have a hole in your house, underneath, you board it up. Whatever it is that you need to do to try to make sure that the water is not flowing into. There's a great example out there. I do have to pick on whoever put that out there. Well, one of the ways that we do is we don't tie off the bags. We just fold the bags and then put them down, and we only fill the bags about halfway filled. I've tried to catch a lot of people where they come. We also have the opportunity of getting sandbags from the fire department. If you go to the fire station, the one across from Food for Less, they'll give you 10 bags. And then there's sand that's available behind the city hall. Do not fill them all the way filled. First of all, you're going to kill your back trying to load all of them. They should be only filled about halfway filled. That's all you're going to need for them. And it should be about 20 pounds that each one would weigh. How well you come through a disaster is directly related to your prior preparation and how effectively it works with the others in the time of need. Once again, the biggest thing is to prepare. We have to prepare. We're preparing with the city. That's why we're coming out here with you guys today, is just to prepare to get everybody ready. So thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Chavez. I'm the local battalion chief with CAL FIRE. I basically have everything from Whitewater to Wildwood Canyon. And I'm here with Shane Reichardt from the Emergency Management Department. And we're going to try not cover something that has been already covered. Seems like Alicia and Josh and everybody's done a really good job of telling you guys what to do, or what to watch for and all that, so.
Justin here. My job, I represent the county. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are broad-based. We work with the city, as Josh mentioned. We work with all of the cities, all the jurisdictions throughout the county. One thing to think about is that water may start in a stream, which may be U.S. Fish and Wildlife, so we got the federal agency. Then it flows through county area, so down we've got county. It flows through some flood control channels, so we've got flood control agencies, public works. Then it flows across some roadways, goes through a city. You can imagine how many agencies are involved in preparing for and responding to those kinds of disasters. So we meet on a regular basis with a lot of our partners. The floods or the storm that we had last week, we activated the county EOC. Alicia was there, acting as a representative from Red Cross and BOAD, as well as city liaisons, all the different agencies that were involved in that response. And I can say that the preparation that we've been doing for several months leading up to this El Nino was very well done. We were able to get there. We still identified some rooms for improvement in our response and how we communicated. Most of it was communication that wasn't quite what it should have been. But we had a very successful, call it a test run, if you will. Everything worked fairly well. We all got together. Excuse me. So some of the agencies on the county side that work towards making sure that we're ready for flooding or the damage that may come from flooding. The Flood Control Agency, working with our dams, levees, basins, clearing waterways, planning for that. Within the city, I talked about they typically travel through multiple jurisdictions, so we're very well coordinated. We've met with a lot of the city of Beaumont representatives, as well as the other cities within the pass. So everything from Banning, Calamasa, even to the tribal nation at Morongo, making sure that we're prepared for it. Within the area, we have some of the private communities, and those tend to get into possibly private maintained roads where you don't benefit from the city services or the county services. So that's certainly something to consider when you're looking at your preparations and how you may need to deal with things, who you contact if you see flooding or see damages. Well, Chief Chavez, one of the things that Chief Chavez does with the fire department is he gets called out to work with fire weather, and so he's very knowledgeable on the weather front. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit about El Nino and cover a couple of things that weren't covered previously.
Alicia did a really good job of describing what El Nino is. Another word for El Nino is the Southern Oscillation. And so it comes and goes. And the opposite side of El Nino is La Nina. And typically the La Nina side means that we get below normal rainfall, and the El Nino side means we get above normal rainfall, but not always. The climatology on this is really tough. There's a lot of hard science involved, but what we talk about in climatology is probability. So we have a high probability of having above normal rainfall. So above normal rainfall in and of itself is not terrible. The two things to watch out for are the rainfall rate. How fast is the rain falling? If you get 3/4 of an inch or more per hour over a couple of hours, that's when most of the property damage occurs in most places. So think about that. The other thing to think about is the frequency of the storms. We have a storm that delivers 3 or 4 inches of rain, and then we get a week or 10 days in between. and then we get another storm, that's not a bad thing. Matter of fact, that's a really good thing because it gives the groundwater a chance to recharge and all those other good things that we want. When we get in trouble is when we only get a 1 or 2 day gap in between those big storms. You get 2 inches of rain over a couple of days, you get a 1 day break. You get 2 inches of rain over a couple, 3 days, you get a 1 day break. That third storm that comes in is when all the property damage gets done. So pay attention, be cognizant of what is going on around you. It'll help you to be ready for when things are going to go bad.
That was one of the things, in '97, we had an identified El Nino pattern, and we had 11 straight days in February of '98, so considered that same storm season. We had 11 straight days of rain, and that's where we saw a lot of the damages come, was from those consecutive days. They weren't significant, we didn't have like 5 or 6 inches of rain on a specific day, but it was multiple days of an inch or less of water. Some days we got 2 inches. That's where we started seeing problems with the accumulation of the rain. Some of the flood control preparations, Corporal Galvez talked about some of the preparations that have been done throughout the city. The county is doing the same thing, clearing out our flood channels. We had a meeting today. We've been doing outreach to reach out to the homeless population. Some of them live in waterways, to make sure that they're prepared, trying to get them, if at all possible. And we've had fairly good success at relocating them, getting them into housing, connecting them with services that are available to them, so that they can get themselves someplace safe and not be at risk in the waterways. Those people that are in the waterways create a hazard to themselves, but also for the rescuers that may have to go in there and help them if they become endangered. We've done a lot of things as far as drills, getting together all the different agencies and practicing what we're going to do. What does that response look like? How are we going to communicate? What are we going to share? Within the cities, we have a program called WebEOC, a way for the cities to share what's going on in their jurisdiction so that the county has a big picture and can monitor the damages and the effect of the storm or any disaster for that matter. A lot of public outreach, a lot of coordinating with different city departments. Some of the preventable impacts, they talked about slopes and looking at, construction going on near you, your property, how your vegetation is if you've recently landscaped it. And that's one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of people have done this drought tolerant landscaping. So they've got new landscaping that may not be completely filled out, if it hasn't taken up all the space. They've got a lot of areas with bark as ground cover instead of having vegetation or grass or lawn. And those are some of the things that may not hold up as well as if you had earth covering all of your property. Retaining walls have drain holes in them. Usually down at the bottom you'll see it doesn't look like anything special other than just a gap in that retaining wall. Those gaps are there for a reason. Those are for drainage. You don't want all that water pressure building up behind that wall. So try and make sure that those are free of leaves. Any debris that you can clear out of there so that retaining wall can drain. We see a lot of damages from roofs. It says commercial, but it can happen with residential. We don't have that many flat roofs in California, but if you have a flat roof, that's a concern. You want to make sure that it's draining properly. They've already talked about clearing out your storm gutters. I just had last week, literally, I had my roof replaced. If you have water leak in your roof, call now. I had scheduled my roofing before the storms, well before the rainy season. And they're telling me, when the guys were out there, they were saying that they're scheduling roofing today for June and July. So the roofing companies are very busy, and it may take you a while to get somebody to come out and do repairs. So you want to make sure that if you suspect that you've got a leak, get somebody immediately to start looking at that. I was at Home Depot just a few days ago, and they've got a section where they've got some of the roofing repair materials all in a specific section with their sandbags and their other mitigation type supplies. We saw a lot of trees down. One of the things we've had is with 4 years of drought, some of these trees are drought weakened. And then you get the weight of water, you get some winds that typically our storms come through. They bring with it some winds, they either blow them in or blow them out. But those winds can cause problems with trees. If you have a tree during a rain event or a storm event, and that tree takes out power lines, you want to stay well clear of there. Make sure that you don't get anywhere near power lines. If someone does come into contact with power lines, don't go to their aid. Call professionals. Let the professionals come in there. Just a few years ago, we had a situation, it wasn't Riverside County, but it was nearby. There was a family and a couple members of the family perished because one person came in contact with power lines, somebody went to their aid, and a third person went to their aid, and all three of them were made contact with live lines. No matter what kind of preparation we do, what kind of mitigation we do, there is going to be flooding. Just like earthquakes, we can do all the preparation for earthquakes, we can make sure our home is prepared, you can't prevent them. The flooding is the same way. If you live in an area where you've had previous flood, you've seen the water building up in your yard, there's things that you can do to prepare for that. You may or may not be able to stop the flooding. One of the things that in a meeting recently with flood controls, they talked about water diversion and the issues that creates. That's kind of a four-letter word with water agencies, because you can't really divert it. Because where are you going to divert it? If it's coming onto my property and I divert it, well, it's going to go onto someone else's property. So you can kind of help direct it and keep it around things of value, but it needs to rejoin in its natural course. Before the storm, this is talking a little bit about some of what the flood control agencies are doing, just making sure that the waterways are ready to deal with the water that we may see. Talked about diversion, disposing of debris. We had a rain incident a few months ago, and the community of Good Hope was impacted pretty heavily. And one of the things that going through and looking at the damages, they found that a lot of the damages were caused by debris. Chain link fences that captured leaves, trash, soda bottles, cans, all kinds of different debris, clogged up chain link fences, and then the water backed up to those chain link fences, and then it essentially created a dam. And then once it reached its capacity, it couldn't hold back anymore. Either the fence collapsed or it tunneled underneath and came from underneath. But then you've got a surge of a whole lot of water that, without that damming, would have just flowed through it and run its course. Now you've got a surge of a lot of water, and that water caused a lot of damage. That was one of the things we saw, and one of the reasons why we're encouraging people, make sure that you clear your property. You get leaves, you get a buildup of leaves. I've driven through this community, there's not a whole lot of areas where you find a lot of trash, but you certainly want to make sure that your backyard, any debris, if you've got construction projects, all that stuff is being cleaned up and put away. People ask about sandbags. What do I do with the sand after I'm done with them? They talked about putting that sand into a waterway, maybe a violation of different laws. The same thing with diverting water. So you want to be real careful and contact your city and find out what the recommendation is. If you get sandbags or you fill sandbags and you're done with them and you no longer want them or need them, find out what the city recommends for you to do with that sand. The sandbag display back here, as Governor talked about, there's different techniques for doing sandbags. We do have a couple CERT flood response classes that we're doing. We've done 2 so far. We're doing another one at the Ben Clark Training Center. We just posted the date on the rivcocert.org website. That's a great class. Talks a little bit about flood response. How many people in here have CERT training? Very good, very good. If you don't have CERT training, highly recommend it. I teach a lot of CERT, and people come to me every single class and tell me afterwards they had no clue that being prepared really did require a whole lot of effort. And one of the things that they didn't realize is how long it may be before professional rescuers are freed up from their highest priority calls and get to the house-by-house check. Talked about, have at least a week's supply. At a minimum, the first 72 is on you. So a minimum, bare minimum, 72-hour supply of food and water, supplies to keep you going. A bare minimum is 72 hours. We talk all the time, we want people to have a week's worth of supplies. Sand and sandbags, as a couple people have mentioned, there are sandbags available to people free of charge. Those sandbags are intended to augment your protective measures for your property. Just like you buy home insurance, just like you put up rain gutters and do things to protect your property, you can go out and purchase sandbags and do your effort to try and protect your property. And then if you find yourself needing more, you can contact the city, go to one of the local fire stations, and get additional supply. But they're really not intended to supplant what's available commercially from the hardware store. They're to give you some additional, to augment your efforts. There is a video that you can find from the County Emergency Management Department. We created a website called RIBCO Ready, R-I-B-C-O, ready.org. And on that website, there's a lot of different resources you can find. Most of the websites that have been mentioned throughout the evening are listed there as well. But you can also find through our Flood Control Agency sandbagging video and see what that looks like when you're trying to put together sandbags. Some other good resources there as well. Sandbags, if you do use them, they don't last forever. They typically degrade when they're exposed to sun. So if you get sandbags or have sandbags and you're trying to reuse them or keep them for multiple periods, when you're done with them, say through the summer, put them in the garage or put them under an eave or something, cover them up so they're not exposed to sunlight, because they will degrade. They're not meant to be used for long periods of time. If they get a hole in them, typically that hole, the material that they use, will start to grow, and before too long they'll have tears in them, and the sand will be coming out. There are some sandbags that you can purchase that don't require sand. They've got a material in there that basically, when exposed to water, that material expands, and they make them to where it looks just like a sandbag. They're fairly expensive, but they're very lightweight, they're easy to store, and they can be reused. You dry them out, let them get completely dry, lay them out, excuse me, and they can be reused. The water reactivates them. But like I said, they are fairly expensive. I mentioned the illegal dump sand and gutter storm drains. That website right there is where you can find that sandbagging video. Again, ribcoready.org, and that's where we have links to a lot of these resources. During a storm, I'll let Chief Chavez talk a little bit about it, but we really encourage people, don't go out and look at, I want to see what's going on in my community, so I'm going to go drive around and check out what's going on. Chief Chavez can talk a little bit about the dangers that flooded waterways can present.
In the San Antonio Pass, we're basically right here, we're at the summit, right? So almost everything, if you're on one side of Pennsylvania Street in Beaumont, the water runs out to the Santa Ana River. If you're on the other side, it runs out to the Whitewater River out in the desert. So you don't have these kind of situations here very often, like we do in other places. That's why Josh said, don't go to San Jacinto, because that's where they have those problems. So we just want you to know that, or to tell you that, if you see standing water, it's really difficult to tell if it's moving or not. Don't try to cross it. No matter how inconvenienced you're going to be, no matter how delayed you're going to be getting to your destination, don't cross standing water. And the other thing is I think there's another slide, Shane. You have to make a decision whether you're going to stay in your vehicle or not. If the water is below the windows of your car, you probably should stay in your vehicle. If you do catch yourself in a situation like this. If it starts to fill your car with water, you're gonna have to get out of that car, because otherwise it's gonna sink. So you need to get out of the car. And like it says there, 6 inches of water can sweep you off your feet, and now you have another problem. Now you're going downstream, and you'd be amazed at how fast moving water will carry you.
Within Riverside County, flooding is one of the consistent disasters we have. We have more flooding disasters than any other disaster. That includes fires. We have flooding almost every single year, even though you think about it, we've been in a drought for 4 years. Last year, they predicted the possibility of an El Nino pattern. It didn't materialize, but we still saw flooding incidents throughout Riverside County. Flooding deaths are one of the leading disaster-related deaths that we, not necessarily that we experience, that on a nationwide level that we see. Drowning in vehicles during flooding, vehicle-related deaths are the highest for flooding-related deaths.
Josh talked about Brookside Avenue about 30 years ago. I witnessed a guy drown right at the corner of Cherry and Brookside. The water went over his car. So that is a really bad place to be in when it's really raining hard.
I think if you talk to any professional responder, I went to a call and I witnessed, we were helping somebody, and our crew witnessed somebody drive into the water from the opposite side of the waterway. And that car, it happened so fast, it was amazing that car basically floated, the back end turned towards the side of the road, and the car went completely underwater. And a few seconds later, we had a lady screaming for help. So it happens amazingly fast. So remember the phrase, turn around, don't drown. Talked about most of these, drowning is preventable. Anybody that watched the news last week, car after car flooded in the intersections, people had to be rescued, so don't get your 15 seconds of fame that way. If you find damages, call 911, especially if you think that there's any life hazards or immediate property hazards. Within the county area, if you see clogged channels or inlets, culverts, you can call that number, 951-955-1230. That information is also on the Rivco Ready website. Couple pictures of some of the flooding damage in the local area. This was just last year. Human Springs are the reason why you don't go that way. So the Rivco Ready website does have a lot of resources. I really encourage you to look there. If you've got Twitter, I don't tweet a whole lot, but I use Twitter to receive information. Rivco Ready is the handle that we use. We tweet any kind of local emergencies or incidents that are going on within the county area. And then some of the resources. All of these websites are listed at the Rivco Ready website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Shane, very much for that information. As you can see, water can get deep around here, and the cars can be affected by it. Let's take a 10 or 12-minute intermission break. You can go back and submit your tickets, raffle tickets, and one of the prizes that you think you'd like to win. After 10 or 12 minutes, you can get refreshments over there as well, and after 10 or 12 minutes, we'll reconvene for panels to answer questions that have been submitted in writing to us for it.